The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests as individuals, and do not necessarily reflect those of advertisers or sponsors. This show is intended as entertainment and commentary only. The producers strive for verisimilitude, but nothing said on this podcast should be taken as fact by the listener or viewer without performing due diligence.
That existence, the physical universe, is basically playful. There is no necessity for it whatsoever. It isn't going anywhere. That is to say, it doesn't have some destination that it ought to arrive at.
This is Keep Your Hat On, a show by three nerdy nobodies and one nerdy kind of somebody about nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is brought to you by the Narrowband Broadcast Network, NBBN. The focus is on you. By PodSquadPDX.com, painless podcasting. And by the kind support of KYHO fans everywhere through Patreon. Patreon, create on your own terms. On this episode, Ty asks a question. Chris asks more questions about the question. Andy tries to get to the actual question, and Dr. Mark, the thinky professional, answers with dog poop. I'm your wayfaring stranger, Mr. Brumage, along with Carlos, the analytical cyclopooch, and yeah, we're literally just phoning it in. Anywho, here's the guys, Andrew, Robert, Dr. Mark, and Chris.
Hello and welcome back to Keep Your Hat On, the show where hell even we don't know where we're going to go. I'm Andrew Scott, along with my good friends Ty Robert Anthony,
hey,
and Christopher Vacano,
you,
and the wayfaring stranger Dr. Mark Peterson.
Hi-ho.
How you doing, guys? How's the intervening couple weeks been?
It's been pretty exhausting and heavy, but I'm okay. Just slammed with work. Which is great.
We actually started talking right away. I was waiting for the crickets to get their shot at
Really? That. I know. I missed the crickets. We've been much better at that lately. But
I'm glad Chris is okay. I've been also up to my elbows in alligators moving into the city of Milwaukee.
How's the dog taking it? How's the animals taking that?
We have two dogs that are going to be shacking up with each other now for the first time, and they like each other.
Good.
So the dogs are going to be okay. The real trick is going to be, we found a way to set up my 20-year-old cat on her own floor.
I was just going to say, does Fred get
her own
floor?
Yeah, Fred gets her own floor with a cat gate at the bottom of the third floor stairs, so that she can sit on the landing and watch the new dog try to get to her.
So is this just for acclimation purposes, or is this
yeah. You have to give cats a little time, right? They need to smell and all the rest of this. And her dog, my significant other's dog, is really an awesome dog, but she's not used to cats, and so
I got a quick question. I was thinking about this. I just brought this up. So, all in the wild, a bear, a wild cat, or like a wolf, who do you think has the greater sense of smell? I mean, they all depend on it at that point.
I would say right to wolf.
I would say bear.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dr. Mark and say wolf.
I kind of thought cat.
Nah.
So that's an interesting question. We don't have an answer to it, but
we'll throw it to the
we don't have an answer. You let me down this. Now I want to know. Everybody fucking Google that shit.
I have another one too. Now that you've talked about it,
okay.
You have a cat.
Apparently, we're into this segment of the show. I don't know what it's called.
A cat, a bear, and a wolf. And which one of them supports the Copenhagen thesis for quantum realities? That's the question.
I would totally go cat in this regard.
Oh, that actually has a lot of merit. Cat has a lot of merit.
Will you repeat that question?
I'm thinking.
No, I'm not able to do that at this time, Ty. I'm sorry.
No, don't trust him. Don't trust him. This is sleight of hand bullshit from a philosopher.
All right. So a cat, a wolf, and a bear walk into a bar. All right, and I'm just going to leave it at that
because I got nothing else.
Because I got nothing.
No,
really
it's
good.
been pretty good here in KYHO camp. We're still seeing a little bit of uptick in listeners. So hello to all you new listeners.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining in. I have one piece of information to pass along. I'm going to be on a podcast called Who Makes a Podcast, and it will probably be airing, I think we said April, but I will fill you guys in more on it as the date approaches. But for all the people who are listening here, make sure to go check out Who Makes a Podcast. It's an interesting discussion with content creators and people like me and Chris and Ty and that decide to try to put something out in the world. But otherwise, what's been in the news that's fascinated anybody in the last couple weeks? I'm just trying to get through the first segment without mentioning COVID. That's my goal. That's my goal for the show.
I'm trying not to think about Ukraine. Actually.
Right.
Well, as we kind of previously discussed, one of the articles that I saw was, and we had brought this up on the show previously, was birds do not exist. And
nice. Yes, you are right.
This gentleman was on Howard Stern. I believe that there might have been another article on him describing how he started it, how it's kind of there to satirically point fun at.
Yeah, point the finger at disinformation.
That really, really get into these conspiracy theories.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's in the news, and he was on Stern. So
interesting. The New York Times today had a report that a bunch of linguistic analysts have figured out who Q is.
Oh,
yeah, that's interesting.
This is news. I have not heard this.
It's in the New York Times, and it turns out it was likely to be. They can do this coefficient. What am I trying to say? Co-occurrence coefficients for pronoun usage and linguistic analysis, right? This is how they figured out, for instance, that J.K. Rowling had written this earlier, mystery novel, and, did Shakespeare write Shakespeare and all that jazz, right? And so they found that it was probably the guy who first implemented, who owned the website where Q first appeared. And then they also tracked a change, and apparently some other Q, higher priest took over the process.
Picked it up and ran with it.
There was a really great documentary
the
about
Bishop of Dibley.
Who Q was.
Dibley. Oh, him again.
And who Q was, I can't remember the name of the documentary. There's a documentary out there, and it spans 2 or 3 parts, maybe 8, talking about where Q first popped up and who Q might have been. And it did say something about that person dropping off and somebody else picking it up, and there was a bunch of given that I've seen that, I would really like the name of the person they thought was Q towards the end, because that's the big part of the mystery.
What's in the New York? I'm sorry, I don't have it up here. I don't. Just Google up New York Times and QAnon, and it'll be there.
I'm just gonna say there's 4 dudes sitting around computers, and none of us can bother to look this shit up.
I have the actual paper here.
Look, I'm on a computer 8 days a week already. Little break doesn't hurt me. Oh, you gotta. What is that thing?
Oh my God, I haven't seen one of those in years.
Shut up. Dear listeners, Dr. Peterson has pulled out an absolute relic of a bygone age.
Shows you how old he is.
Yes,
He's flapping newspapers at us.
It was an excuse to sit quietly in your room on a Sunday morning and with
right.
I wish we actually. I don't know that we have a large newspaper here in the.
Here we go. It turns out it was a guy named Ferber, who was a South African software developer, who was one of the first guys in on it.
Yeah. Now that part is actually in the documentary.
Yeah, we are totally. What does Boomer need? What does Boomer need?
Do you need to go outside? You're looking at me funny. My dog is becoming. Here, I have to show you this.
What's up, Boom?
Hang on a second.
Hey, buddy dog.
This is the look I
he
get.
Can't hear us, right?
Yeah.
He's got his headphones in. He can't hear us. He's just.
No, this is sort of like.
Oh, that's the backup
he's articulating,
too.
And it's like, do you need to go outside? But he's gotten a little senile here, so I don't know if this means he's hungry or needs to go outside. But I think I'm going to take him out if that's okay.
Yeah, why don't you do a quick run? Tell you what, folks, we're going to be right back on the other side of this doggy break here on the Narrowband Broadcast Network. I'm Andrew, that's Chris, that's Mark, and that's Ty, and we'll be right back. Great way to throw in a break. Dog's got to poop.
That has been more ADD of an opening.
No.
how we bounced all over the place.
Squirrel. Oh, cool.
Hey everybody, Michael, your stalwart announcer here, the voice of the Keep Your Hat On podcast. We really hope you're enjoying the shows we put out every month and the bonus goofiness we try and throw in. If you do, we'd really appreciate your support. While we'd love it if you could help us out with a monthly donation by heading over to patreon.com/NBBN, please don't forget that you can also support us by telling your friends, relatives, the hot Amazon delivery guy, hell, your potted fern, about the show, and do the like, click, and subscribe thing. That's free, and it helps us out more than you might suspect. We just want to keep putting something good out into this bananas world at this extra bananas time, and we want you along for the ride. No matter what, thanks so much for audio visualizing. Now, let's get back to the show.
So I don't know if my dog is like becoming senile. This is like having, like parents who go into dementia or what it is, because I can't tell anymore. He's not giving me the signals he used to give. It's like, do I need to go outside? There's only two things the dogs care about. I want to eat or I want to go outside.
Right.
And in the morning we have our ritual about going for the walk, but that's it. And it's like, he's kind of like, he does this thing now where you'll say, okay, do you need to go outside? And he does that head shake thing that allows them to like jingle their tags and everything.
Yeah.
And then if I'll say, okay. And then we'll go, he won't want to go out. And I say, are you hungry? And then he'll shake his head again to jingle. And I think it could be that he's simply manipulating me, actually, for his own amusement now. He could be smart enough to be doing that now.
Yeah, because when the dogs do that, it's almost like they're shaking themselves out like, all right, let's go.
Yep.
You know?
Exactly. That's what it looks like.
He just got you so programmed. So
the other thing he does now, too, is like, and this is going to all change here in about a week and a half when we move downtown, is like we will be like apartment dwellers, which means I have to walk the dogs, right? They get to when they go out, right?
Like for real walk.
I got to take them down to the end of the driveway to use the median so they can pee.
Yeah, are you guys not on much by way of a plot? I mean, obviously
we have no lawn, man. Oh, it's awesome. No lawn. I'm thinking about putting some sod in on the balcony so the dogs can like pee on the balcony.
There you go.
There you go.
But it's
by the way, folks, welcome back to Keep Your Hat On. We decided to start another segment.
It just happened.
It does. We're spontaneous like that.
Well, so let me ask one more thing. Maybe you guys have had this happen.
Yeah.
So, but right now, because I live in the rolling bucolic kettle moraine of Wisconsin, he's on a long lead, right? So I put him out in the backyard and he gets on this long, about a 50-foot lead. And what he likes to do now is he gets himself caught by winding it around trees and stuff, and around the car and around the garbage
You come
cans.
out and it looks like a spider web with a dog at the end.
Some kind of cat's cradle affair. And he was out there barking at me like, and there's a very specific bark, which is like, come and rescue me.
Yeah, monkey, I need your assistance.
See, that's the monkey part that I'm interested in here.
Yeah.
Because I've started to suspect that he just does it for his own amusement.
Right.
Because I always come out and untangle it. And then it's like, really about, I don't know, 70-80% of the time he's just fine. But more, every couple of days, he gets himself in a real pickle, all wound up. Usually I let him out for like an hour on his lead. He comes and he'll be barking. I'll go, he's right at the back door. But no, he started to manipulate, track the lead around cars and around the garbage cans in ways that are like incomprehensible. And it's like, why were you even in there?
Yeah, the whole time he's doing it, he's thinking, dance monkey.
That's right. I'm beginning to suspect that I'm being manipulated by the dog.
I'm going to get this so fucked up that he's going to take an hour. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think
I am going to have his undivided attention.
It reminds me of that. There was somebody had a joke one time. Somebody was telling a story about how the big thing that their grandmother had been getting, losing their faculties. Yeah. And it was always, where's the remote? Where's the remote? Where's the remote? Find grandma the remote. And they tried, tethering it to her wrist and all this, and it would always go missing. And then it wound up coming down to Grandma, why are you always losing the remote? And she's like, I'm not always losing the remote. I just get lonely sitting in the living room by myself watching TV.
Oh.
Have I told you my joke about the Jewish mom? I call it the Jewish mom.
Do you want to go there? I'm throwing up a safety flag here first.
Oh no, it's not blue at all. It's not blue at all.
No, but it started with Jewish mother, and I just got worried.
You will, if you have ever been exposed to the Jewish culture.
Oh, I know from this.
You will get this joke.
And we're going to say this with all love and respect and shalom and l'chaim. Okay?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
So guy calls his mom and says, Ma, how you doing? His mom says, not so good. And he goes, Ma, what's going on? Why are you not doing so good? And she goes, well, I haven't eaten in a week. And he says, Ma, why haven't you eaten in a week? And she says, because I didn't want my mouth to be full when you called.
That's actually kind of weirdly perfect, isn't it?
That's
sort of.
Cute.
I will give you a pat on the back for that one.
That's all right.
Well, I tell you what, let's do here. We brought up something earlier before we started the show that Ty brought to us, and we're going to have a quick little discussion, and of course, quick was in air quotes, about we're going to call it an ethical conundrum. And I do believe it plays into the greater discussion that we're having in our culture today. So,
Andy, is this on the new Wheel of Conundrum feature?
Oh, yeah. By the way, 1 second. There we go. We are spinning the Wheel of Conundrum, and it's landing on poison on a bus. Ty, fill us in.
So, first of all, we are in the book, Would You Eat Your Cat?
Links in the description. Carry on, Ty.
X links.
Yeah, links, nice.
And this is by Jeremy Stangroom, this book. And so let's get into it. Nancy has caused consternation among the passengers of the London 6:50 a.m. Union Express bus service. She got on board chained to a large box with the words "Danger, emits poison" printed on it. She explains that the box contains a slow-release poison, which will affect approximately 5% of the people that are exposed to it. The poison's range is intermediate, but a proximity will increase the chances that the person will be affected by it. The effects, though unpleasant, are rarely fatal, and while the victims might need a few days off from work to recuperate, they'll soon be right as rain. Her fellow passengers are not enormously pleased by this news. They indicate that she might be better off, and it might be in her better interest, to step off the bus immediately. But she objects to that. She needs to get to work because a lot of people depend on her. The bus is her only mode of transportation, and she's chained to the box, so she can't leave it behind. Moreover, she insists that she is not behaving any differently than somebody else has behaved on occasions, and that there is nothing immoral with her actions. And the question is she right? Should Nancy be allowed to bring the poisonous box on public transportation?
Well, okay, first off, we'll establish the fact that if she's on a traditional double-decker bus in the UK, we're talking about 30 to 35 people. That's what those buses are smaller than people think they are, unless it's an articulated one and then it's double that. So you're talking about exposing roughly 30 people. And you said, what's the percentage of people that may get sick?
Approximately 5%.
Okay,
5%.
so
I believe
So we're talking about like 2 people.
Yeah, between 1.5 and 2 people. And the question here, just to be concise, is...
So it's okay that only 2 out of the bus get infected?
Yeah, I'm making a discernment here. Is the question, is it okay to do this, or does she have the right to do this?
In what Ty just read, it introduced a word that made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck, which was morality.
Yeah,
is it morally acceptable? And that's...
Yeah, I knee-jerk at that, too.
Yeah, that's a whole fuzzy area. Morality, ethics, they're all sort of different.
What's the fuzzy part?
Different boxes.
It would be awesome if we had a professional philosopher
Hang on
around.
a minute. Hang on a minute.
Somebody
I got a question that I want to ask.
Okay, go ahead.
Mark,
Hi.
is there, and if there is, what is the difference between morality and ethics?
I have
You should watch one of our past shows. We did this.
Didn't we do this?
Let's
Have we
do
been
it
here before?
with two philosophers
Wasn't
at
this
the
on the
same
side?
time.
Did Hugh and I go crazy on this? Yeah, the
We'll
easy,
link to
Yes,
this.
you did.
yeah, the easy answer on this one, that's normal, by the way. The easy, of course, and he's had a fun time in Ottawa.
I keep up with his adventures on Instagram.
Oh dear.
We'll have Dr. Hugh back on
Yeah,
sometime
Dr. Miller
soon.
will be
It's
back sometime.
too much fun.
The easy answer to this, though, is my usual equation for this stuff. My bumper, years ago I had a professor who said, if you can't put it on a bumper sticker, you don't really understand it yet.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, really, by the way, good advice. But so my bumper sticker version of that, the answer to this, Ty, is that ethics is morality plus thinking about it. And so morals are usually the sort of like the stuff we inherit, they're the sort of triggered reflexes that we have to certain situations. And so morality is sort of this sort of emotional, appetitive complex of things where it's like, it's your gut reaction to things and all the rest of that.
So you're basically, would I be wrong in saying that morality drives our ethics?
Absolutely. Well, yes, you'd be right if you said that.
I'd be
Yeah.
right.
This is
just a technical academic question for you.
Oh.
Are morality and mores drawn from the same
Yeah,
root
it's the same
term?
word, essentially.
They're
Yeah, that's a good way
fundamentally
to
the
think
same
about
thing.
it.
So social mores.
Yeah, I can make this worse though too, to give it even more, to make it even more obtuse, and that's that even Aristotle mentions that the word ethics comes from the Greek word hexis, which means habits. And so, what you really want in a good ethic is all of the sort of the reflexes you get with we used to say with like mother's milk, right? The stuff you grew up with, the way you've been acculturated, all of the habits that you have when you react to something. This is the problem, right? It's like we all have attitudes toward race and gender and class, for instance, which we're not completely conscious of, but they're all mixed up in there, right?
Yeah.
And if you're semi-conscious in life, you kind of go, okay, the reality is I'm like, so in my case, right, I'm a 60-year-old white guy from Minnesota, who had every possible advantage. I'm a poster child for white privilege. Okay. Is it likely that I have racial and attitudes about race and gender that are probably not as good as they could be? And the answer was, well, yeah, right? Odds are. So those are what we would call, those are the morals and the habituated dispositions that we have as a result of just having grown up in the culture we are. But, you don't get to just get away with that, right? You really have to think about it. It's like, okay, what would be a better reaction if, I don't know, seeing a black man run for president, right? What would be like a good reaction to that? And you have to think about that because your gut you might have been raised in a place where like, oh, holy cats, we can't allow that, right?
Well, and that goes back to what you were saying, which is morality is something that you have inside you. Ethics is something that you develop once you take your morality and run it through your fucking brain.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to say it.
Yeah, and so it almost seems like kind of a codified morality.
No, it's vetted.
That's where I was going.
Okay.
Yeah,
and here's the thing: is like one of the weird things that comes with all this time. Part of your what's hiding inside your question. This is kind of meta. Sorry, but it's what's hiding inside the question is this divorce that's happened in the last 300 years between your motivations for why you do things and the reason why people think they're ethical. And there's a standard of practice inside people who do ethics all the time that ethics itself is kind of grounded in something that isn't just about your motivations, that it has to do with rational understanding of making judgments about when things have moral value or not. And we'll have to do a separate show about this, Andrew.
Right.
But what happened was like practice got divorced from theory, and I blame Christianity for this.
Totally.
So, yeah, but another show, maybe. Well, I'm going to go there. But
damn monks.
Earlier. See, under Christianity, there's nothing you can do to make yourself be good, right?
No,
that's right.
You're born stained.
Yeah. So, but for the Greeks, of course, there was all sorts of things you could do to make yourself be a better person. And so, anyway, Ty, back to the motivation stuff. And this is, by the way, I'll just add this one last detail here while we're riffing. This is where Nietzsche went right away, and this is sort of what still. I got thrown out of all sorts of conferences for years by asking people who did ethics. It's like, what do you do with Nietzsche? Because Nietzsche's whole hammer comes down to this one question, which was, isn't ethics just really about personal preference?
Yeah.
And you could sort of make that case, right? But here what you have to do is you have to take the way your culture has raised you to respond to certain social situations. You have to run that stuff through your brain to see if it makes any sense really. And people don't want to do that second one.
Yeah.
No, that's what I always wind up saying. Morality is unconscious. Ethics is conscious.
I think that's right. Or at least really conscious or aware, self-aware anyway. Huh?
At least aware.
Actually,
yeah.
This gets me to an interesting space just listening to you guys. I'd like to redirect back to the source question.
Well,
please do.
Actually going to ask you, before we got there, Chris.
Sure.
What was it about the word morality that got you to bristle?
Probably my Catholic upbringing.
Yeah, same thing with me. The fact that morality,
explain that a little.
By definition, is something that we've had instilled in us that we don't really think about.
Morality was both the measuring stick and the sword by which actions were judged in that context.
The measuring stick and the beating stick. Yeah,
it was the ruler that came down on your fingers.
Yeah, exactly right.
And so these are just the rules, right? These are the rules by which you must abide. Period. Without like reflection or consideration.
Yeah.
And what I saw in the application of morality when I was in that context, and I it's no big secret. I no longer think of myself as Catholic or Christian.
When you were in third grade, say, right?
But,
I mean, that's
on up into early high school before I really started going a different direction.
Oh, puberty is such a problem.
To hell.
Yeah. Well, and having Jesuits telling you things like,
yeah, when Jesuits tell you you're going to hell, you've really done something.
But they weren't telling me I was going to hell. They were telling me, look, Chris, it doesn't matter what language you use, what labels you choose. If you find what drives you to be a good person and a positive, lead a positive life in the world, you're going to be just fine.
That's so
it doesn't matter if you're on our team or not.
Yeah, don't think for a minute that the Jesuits are Christians. Okay, let's just
not by any stretch.
They're their own wonderful cult, and I still to this day,
like the strong arm of the Catholic.
Oh yeah, they're the stormtroopers of the church, man. They were.
Yeah. Well,
that's how they were created, though, right?
Yeah, but then they became the sort of intellectual arm.
Yeah,
they're the brains. They were the brains of the church forever.
They're
the philosophers.
Yeah,
I mean, in a sense,
they pulled all our information out of the Dark Age.
I think that's safe to say. Yeah.
To tie up my answer to your question, Ty. Yeah. When I was in that context, I saw the application of morality was so inconsistent and hypocritical and one-sided that whenever that word gets dropped into conversation for now, and I'm in earshot, I physically cringe.
Right.
Well, and Ty, that's the reason why I asked you at the beginning of this meandering about was it phrased one way or was it phrased the other way? And the reason why I flinched is the same reason why Chris flinched, but I can sum it up in a lot fewer words. And that is, ethics and morality are not the same thing, but they're used interchangeably.
Oh, that's so true.
Today.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to get the firmament of the argument established first before we move forward.
Yeah, it was actually in print morality.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what that a sense says is that is it moral to do so? Or is it immoral to do so? One or the other. Which is it? Is what the question is.
Yeah, and see if you follow through with what we've been talking about on here, the question about whether it's moral or not to bring a big giant box marked poison on the thing. What that question is asking you for is your gut reaction, right?
Yeah, and this is where I was headed, Ty, before you posed your question to me. And I've had a journey in the last 10 minutes with this question, just listening to you talk, Dr. Mark, and thinking about this stuff and sort of extracting it and really picking it apart.
You got to be careful. That's what he does.
My initial gut reaction was I didn't like her whataboutism argument that, well, everybody else has done something similar. so I should be allowed to.
Yeah, but we hear that all over in society.
Oh, sure. And but that doesn't mean it's a good argument.
And I flinch every time somebody does it. Yeah.
It's a problematic argument.
That's because it's always based on people's gut reactions to things and not on actually having thought it through, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I bristled at that. But then in listening to the discussion, it occurs to me that what she's doing is actually more moral than what the other people have done.
Oh, you mean like sneak a box of poison on the bus without telling anybody?
Exactly, because of the transparency of her actions and the visibility, the fact that everybody on that bus is aware of the situation, whereas, say someone comes onto that bus with the flu, which I think is the obvious parallel that's being drawn here, that they're not telling everybody. They don't step on the bus and announce it to everybody. They're not wearing a badge saying I have the flu. They're not giving any indication. So they are preventing the rest of the members of the bus from knowing what risk they are being put at. And whereas she is being totally transparent about it. So in a sense, she's being more moral.
But that's not the question. You're right, that's part of the equation, but that's not the question asked. So let's get back to the question asked, which is, was it a moral thing for her to do?
The question reads, while morality was in the body, the question is she right? Should Nancy be allowed to bring the poison box on public transportation?
Okay, so I tell you what, let's just flat out do this in a one-word answer, yes or no, with extrapolation after.
Oh, can you really do that?
Yes. I just said with extrapolation after. I'm saying no, and I'm saying no to a very specific question. Ty, what was the question again?
The question was...
Don't give me the whole thing.
Should Nancy be allowed to bring
Should she be allowed? And I'm saying she should not be allowed to do so.
So she should not have that choice.
It's not her choice.
Yeah, it's not her choice. Yeah. And that's where I'm going. So that's the question I'm answering, is the actual, from the predicate, I'm answering that question.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, I want to pick that apart a little bit.
No, we're going to. I just wanted to get my answer out there to that.
Yeah. And the question is why does, at that point, I think the question should be, why does she feel that she should be allowed to do it?
Freedom.
Well, no, she makes her argument why she feels like she should be allowed to do it.
Yeah, exactly. She just did the whole thing.
Which is that other people have done something similar.
It's not like it's plutonium.
And she's being excluded.
I think her reasoning for doing it was before that, when she said, hey, look, I'm chained to this box of poison. I can't get it off. Public transportation is the only way that I can go, and I got to get to work. There are people depending on me.
There's a whole cascade of dominoes there, though, that she's ostensibly taking this box to work with her and endangering those people as well.
Well, again, we don't know. She might work at the poison factory.
Well, and if she works at the poison factory, I would think they would have special transportation for
poisons. let's not get too granular about this. My thing here is that she also has a responsibility, Ty. She also has a responsibility under the social contract that we all supposedly have agreed to not put strangers in danger and at risk with your own behavior.
But have we all agreed? Have we all consciously ticked that box?
Well, no, that's what the social contract is.
You're right. It's an agreement.
Clearly not. Look around.
Dr. Mark, jump in here and make some sense out of this shit.
I'm having a weird kind of moment here, by the way. If I could just jump in here as a...
Please, I'm begging you.
As a professional, one of the interesting things about conversations about ethics is, and I'd like that you just did this, it's really easy, and you'll notice this in your own lives, right? When people get into these discussions, they completely forget what the original question was. Have you noticed that?
I've been trying really hard.
It's like, oh, what was the question again? This is by the way, this is a very normal process because I think people aren't accustomed to like digging down this. So here, look, somebody thought up this question, right? they used the word consternation in the question. I'm just saying.
Mhm.
So they thought up this question. So there's all these layers in it, right? Which are the question is designed to elicit and make explicit all these different factors that people usually just go walk right by, right?
Yep.
What's the difference between morality and ethics? Does she have obligations? So if you have rights to do something, do you also have obligations at the same time? Or is it, what's the social contract involved? I mean, what if, if you're a libertarian Ayn Rand person, you're going to think, well, she gets to just do whatever the hell she wants to, man. The free market will take care of the poison.
Sorry,
problem.
I just vomited in my mouth a little bit. I'm sorry.
Me too. No, you learn to cut
three.
the gag reflex. You learn over time to suppress it.
Yes.
So, does she have a right to take the box on? It's like, so I have other questions before I can even answer this. This is my burden, which is this dialectical process of you always have to dig down through the question to see what it really is before you try to answer it.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, it's like, I want to know who chained the box to her leg, first of all. This is like with the trolley problem. If I throw the bar between, killing a 4-year-old child and killing 6 4-year-old child, which is, it's like, I want to know who tied people to the tracks.
Yeah,
who was the drunken
created
jackass that created this
Who
four-way
created that
switch?
scenario?
Don't ask me to solve a problem.
It certainly
that doesn't
wasn't
exist.
Burlington Northern. I mean, this was
My bigger question is if proximity matters and it's chained to her wrist,
Yeah.
will she die?
See,
or
that's another
is she,
question, right?
is
That's
she
another
immune
question.
because of continuous exposure?
And so you can start to, as you go along, and by the way, and it's really important to just sort of, in my imagination, answering questions like this is exactly like doing jigsaw puzzles. And I don't know if you guys had, my mother and grandparents used to do this, like
Yeah,
to keep the kids busy at Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff. They'd dump a big crossword puzzle, or a jigsaw puzzle out on the dining table. And then the first thing you have to do is turn all the pieces right side up, right?
Yep. And then
And
find
then
all
you
the
gotta find
corners.
Corners, sides.
And then build the edges.
Yep.
There you go. You
Yep.
got it. And that's what all these ethical conversations work exactly the same way. You kind of make sure all the pieces are turned up first, right? Then you look for the corners. And then, because what happens is, and this is again, sort of an overview of all these kinds of questions. When you ask an ethical question, people will answer it immediately without asking what the question really means first.
Yep.
And so digging down through something like this, there's a lot of layers in a question like this. Is like, who chained her to the box? Does she have an obligation to her fellow passengers not to poison them, for instance? That's a question. And as you go through this, what happens is you start to delineate different possible outcomes, right? There's sort of different, there's a whole lot of if-thens built into this, right? So, okay, if she doesn't have any social obligations, then it doesn't mean anything. If she paid for a ticket, doesn't that mean she bought a seat regardless of whether she has poison or not? And you can see how all of these kinds of different starting points lead to different endpoints, right?
Right.
And part of the process of doing this is trying to figure out what the starting points are. Because technically speaking, and I'm pretty sure about this now, every question always dictates what all the possible answers are.
Yeah.
Just because of the words in the question.
So I have a question before we continue to pick this apart.
Yeah.
Is it fair, Dr. Mark, that we have the binary of yes and no? Depending on your perspective, they are both equally provocative.
They can be, sure.
And then we have a bunch of gradients in between.
Yeah.
And is the answer that we're going to derive to, whatever that answer is, and probably not even going to get to an answer. After all,
have you listened to the show?
Yeah, have you met us?
We don't know where we're going to end up here, Ty. That's the thing.
But those gradients, is it more than likely that we are going to fall into one of those gradients between the two?
So here's the deal with ethics, right? So, and this is what drives me nuts about ethics as a subdiscipline inside philosophy, is there are still a lot of people who think, no, there should be right answers to these questions.
Yeah.
And the deal is like, look, we're talking about real life, right? And in real life, everything is a shade of gray.
Messy.
Now, what you do is, of course, there are better or worse answers to the questions like this.
By the way, I saw what you did there with the Grateful Dead reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A touch of gray.
A touch of gray.
And so, which has become an increasingly important song to me as I've gotten older,
right.
by the way.
Oh, God.
Since ethics is about real life, it has to work in real life. And what that means is it's always going to be an inductive solution, which means you have to collect data and you're going to come up with a probability distribution. So the easiest thing I could tell you is that ethics, when you apply it in the real world, is always a kind of regression analysis, right? You take all the data points, you find the best possible options given all these different circumstances, and then you do that. Now, people will go, oh, well, that's just pure relativism, right? This is the usual answer. It's like, well, if it's not yes or no, it's purely relative. It's like, no, it's not. It's not purely relative. There are always better. It's like, do you let a woman on the bus carrying a big box of poison that's going to kill anybody? And the answer is no. It's like, well, what's your justification for that? It's like, well, we typically don't want to kill a lot of people, right? And who the hell chained her to this box? Somebody called the cops. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this is the danger. I think, this is sort of one of these overarching. I've been trying to figure out how to articulate this because I've been interested in these sort of larger, forest as opposed to tree questions. It's like, well, how did the forest get like this? And in ethics, people want these answers that are like certain, right? They want certainty in their answers and their ethical calculus. And the reality is like, life is a mess, right?
Yeah.
If you've ever broken up, I was thinking about this the other day. It's like my first significant other, who was this awesome, brilliant woman I was in graduate school with. I was just talking to you guys before we went online. Here's a real ethical question, right? Should I have broken up with her? And the answer to that was yes. Now, but why did I break up with her? And, I've had about 40 years to think about this now. And the answer was, I was about 3 years too immature for the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was just trailing her by about 3 years. And if I had been like 3 years older, we would have like set up for life, but I wasn't ready to do it. And just to make this more interesting, I guess, is the physical chemistry was outstanding. And so it's like, you're juggling.
Sorry to creep you out, all you listeners, with that ASMR of Dr. Peterson.
Nothing like an
that.
old guy, going, oh, outstanding.
Back in the day. But it was awesome, right? And it was really awesome. And it's like, you balance. That's in any relationship when you realize it's like, I wasn't in love with her. That was like a sudden revelation. It's like, you're not really in love, right? I was like, oh dear. And so my moral compass was we had to break up.
Moral compass. I just am pointing out that you said that word.
I did, yeah. And it's like that's the sort of thing like over time, right?
Yeah.
So but that's how messy this always is, right? That's how messy real world questions are.
Well, and I think that points me to something. Two things. Your forest.
Sorry about the ASM.
No, it's all right. Your forest and trees analogy. I like that because you're busy wondering why the forest is so messy, and you're not so concerned with why that tree fell on you. And that leads out to a slightly larger view of this whole thing, and that is, I always have a problem with hypothetical situations and scenarios.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would much rather do an ethical / moral analysis of actions that have happened in the past. Because, as you were saying, Dr. Mark, then it's a finite occurrence. You've got things to look at. You've got data to take into consideration.
You've got all the context.
Yeah.
And that's just it. There's everything about a hypothetical question when it comes to, an ethical or philosophical analysis of behavior. It's not the real world.
So we use the word hypothetical here, which is really interesting, right? And I'm going to go back, and this has been my rocking horse for the last 20 years now. And that's that in contemporary ethical theory. So the people who wrote this book are probably contemporary ethics. They use rights and utilitarianism and so on.
Yeah.
And for them, ethics is a largely theoretical set of constructions. And that just kept, I wasn't an ethicist. I'm a metaphysics guy.
Yeah.
And so I kept running into these questions about, theoretical ethics. And I kept going, even Aristotle and up through Thomas Aquinas said that ethics is a practical matter.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe we brought this up before, but Aristotle has this beautiful analogy for this too, Ty, which sort of goes to what we were talking about. It sort of touches on what Chris was saying before. He talks about the difference between triangles are different depending on whether you're a geometry guy or a carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still triangles, but you're interested in different things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of contemporary ethics are interested in the geometry of a triangle. And Aristotle and I think sane people are interested in the carpentry because it's like, what can I do with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
How am I supposed to live? How am I supposed to make a decision about my relationships to others? I mean, why did she think, it's like, should I bring this box of poison on the bus, right? So what was holding her up? I mean, what was her motivation for bringing in on the bus? She had to get to work. So is it okay to poison? So she thought, obviously,
and that's that
it's okay to poison other people in order for her to get to her job.
Right.
Or potentially poison.
Well, and that raises the question of, and she makes the case that a lot of people depend on her. Well, that's really vague. I mean, that could be a lot of people on the marketing team depend on her to push numbers around a spreadsheet so that they can make a PowerPoint deck so they can go out and sell whatever bullshit that company sells. Or she could be a doctor who needs to get to work to save lives.
Whose administrator chained a box of poison to her.
Well, administrators are a box of poison. No.
Yeah,
joking,
there you go.
Joking.
Different show.
Chris, you bring up a good point. And the answer to both of those, I feel, is the world going to come crashing if she was to take this box that she's chained into some kind of medical facility, maybe call ahead, right? So she's not exposing somebody needlessly, and get it taken off her arm and disposed of.
But again, going back to the hypothetical situation,
is the people,
that's not part of the equation.
Is the people she's going to depend on, that are depending on her job, really, is that going to cause a total crash scenario if she's absent for a day to take care of it?
And my thing is, what's the other set of people that are depending on her, which are people on that bus who have agreed to the social contract of being on a bus, that you're not going to expose people to danger?
So the first question was, is she right?
No.
I want to say, what do you mean by right?
Well, thank you. But half my tongue was bitten while I was answering.
The latter part of the response is that she's insisting that she is not behaving any differently to the way that they have all behaved on occasions.
So if I have a cold and I go on the bus without wearing a mask, right?
Yes.
That would be an example, right?
Yes.
And yeah, that's the elephant in the room here that we'll just admit to. This really is a hypothetical question that really applies to where we are today with the pandemic that I'm trying desperately not to mention for at least one fucking show.
Steady, old boy. Steady. Yeah, I think...
Sorry about that ASMR noise, too. That's a whole different podcast we can office.
It's a new demographic for our listeners.
Oh, there's a niche for every kink, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Yeah, yes.
I would disagree that I think that she is right. She's not behaving any differently than anybody else has on occasion. Now, that is an explanation, not an excuse.
No, actually,
right?
That's an excuse, not an explanation. In my mind, that's an excuse, not an explanation. Because
an excuse does explain things. It doesn't make it right. It just explains why it's there.
Oh, that's a rabbit hole.
It explains a perspective.
I'm not going to touch this one.
Right?
Yeah.
Where's my mute button?
Oh, explanation and excusability, right? So this might explain it, but it doesn't excuse it.
Well, so you'd be arguing that,
or have I just been watching too much Trailer Park Boys?
It could be. I kind of like those guys.
I do too.
But maybe you have been, because here's the question then. It's like, so her job is more important than the lives of her fellow passengers. That's what I think you're saying.
Not only, I would say, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I think from her perspective, that might be the case.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I meant.
I would fall in with Andy at that point. You know what? Just because those people are so important, how about all the people that are on that bus? How about all the people that she got in proximity to, walking to that bus stop, waiting at that bus stop, getting off that bus, walking to work? Well, and then
you've got the Einstein, you've got the Einstein conundrum as well. Where what happens if one of those people exposed on the bus was a child prodigy who hadn't developed yet, gets sick and dies, and you just killed the next Einstein?
Right.
So that's why I hate these hypothetical arguments.
And what happens when they do get sick? Do they get a box of poison chained on their wrist?
Maybe that's what it is. Is you start growing this chain out of your wrist that suddenly has a box attached to it.
So is the box of poison capitalism, Ty? Is that what you're saying?
Ooh. I am not prepared to go down that rabbit hole.
I think this really does circle back to this whole idea of, and boy, this is not a show, this is a series, this idea of freedom. And that
you might want to put away that wheel. for good.
Yeah, no shit, eh? But this idea that my freedom trumps any... Oh, boy. Did I literally just say that? Oh, my God. My freedom... Twumps any of your personal concerns.
So let me give you a weird example. I actually thought of this morning. This has actually absolutely to do with this, I think. See if this analogy holds. So I walk Boomer in the morning, right? And part of my responsibility as a dog owner is to pick up Boomer's poop when he poops, right? So I bring a bag to do this, right? And I was thinking, so this is what happens when you do philosophy professionally. I'm watching Boomer poop this morning, and I'm thinking about.
That's like great. So this is what happens when you're a professional philosopher. I was watching my dog take a crap.
That's where all the great answers come from.
You're watching your dog poop, and I was thinking, how do I use this as an analogy against people who won't wear masks?
Jesus Christ.
So stay with me and tell me if this doesn't.
Oh, yeah. I'm here. I bought the ticket. I'm here for the ride.
It's an E-ticket. It's good. It's good.
Oh,
and maybe it's one of the C tickets. It's like that ride in the horse carriage ride.
Yeah.
But I thought about this. It's like if I were arguing with somebody, and I live in a place where there are lots and lots of people who think that being asked to wear a mask is a violation of their freedoms, right? Their constitutional freedoms. So I thought, okay, do I have any reason, if one of these anti-mask people is walking their dog, do I have a reasonable expectation that if their dog poops on my lawn, do I have a reasonable expectation that they ought to pick it up?
Right. That's the age-old question.
And I want to say, yeah, I have a reasonable, people are stupid, so they don't always pick up their own dog poop. I can't believe I wrote a column about this years ago because it drives me crazy. But it's like, I have a reasonable expectation to think that they would pick up their dog's poop. And I would guarantee you, by the way, that the sort of people who argue that masks are an imposition on their freedom, those are the sort of people who would scream, hell yes, you have an obligation to pick up your dog's poop, right? Personal responsibility. It's like, because wow.
You need to understand. You need to understand, everybody who doesn't live in Wisconsin, the fetish of lawn in Wisconsin is off the fucking charts.
I was going to ask if that was something we needed to say, Andrew, because it's like because
it's
lawn
not the
matters
same.
Here. No,
it really does.
No, it's a fetish. It's a religious responsibility.
Lawns matter.
Hashtag lawn matters.
Lawns matter.
Sell that pie. You've got money coming to you.
There's a bumper sticker there. Hashtag lawns. We should launch that one. Do
it.
Keep your hat on.
All lawns matter.
All lawns matter.
Wow. I'm not going to go there. Okay. But so if you were to say this to this guy, couldn't you make the analogy that if he sneezes on you and leaves toxic coronavirus on you, doesn't he have an obligation to, I don't know that Boomer is going to poop every time we go out, but I carry the bag. And these people don't know they're going to be contagious every time they go out, but they should wear a mask.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was where my brain went this morning.
No, I agree.
My coffee.
Circling back to the questions, Ty, technically she may be correct that other people on the bus have behaved in a similar fashion from time to time. However, and I'm back to actually sort of where I started now, which is, does the fact that other people showed a lack of consideration for their fellow passengers justify her attempt to demonstrate a lack of consideration?
Well, and that's something that comes up in philosophical academic discussions all the time, and you'll hear it because anybody who does it at a party gets beaten over the head with it. Bad or poor actions of the past can never justify bad or poor actions of the present. Ever. It doesn't work that way.
Okay,
that's where I come down on it too.
Yeah. How about this though? I mean that speaks to a social norm, right? And the social norms of yesterday are not the social norms of today. And so, how much does that social norm play into what's going on?
Well, which direction are in you bringing that up, Ty? Which direction are you saying that the needle is shifting?
I'm just saying that you don't have to look hard to find examples of, you don't have to look very far at all. What was acceptable yesterday as a social norm is no
I see what you're saying.
Acceptable,
all right.
So now if we apply that to this situation, people getting on willy-nilly in the past before she brings this box of poison on is a social norm at that point.
That's even more reason to throw out any argument of whataboutism, because the past behaviors that we found acceptable back then, that's a shifting sands all the time, and it's no good, useful measure for behavior in the present.
Yeah, Ty, what about her emails?
Exactly. What about her server?
Not to get overly simple about it, but do two wrongs make a right?
No, and I think that this is a totally appropriate place to plug that in.
Somebody say it. Two rights make an airplane. Go on.
There you go.
And there's a dad joke segment for the evening.
We need to put in a real dad joke.
That wasn't the wheel. That was not on the Wheel of Conundrums.
I'm sorry. That really took me a minute.
Well, wow, Chris, how tired are you?
Check your ankle for a box of poison, Chris.
I think we've meandered plenty on this.
I think so too.
My final say on it, not like I'm judge, jury, and executioner here, is...
But you're the editor.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Exactly.
True,
so
yeah.
This whole segment's on the cutting room floor. Again, I'm interested in the book. I looked up Jeremy Strangrom, and he is a British writer, editor, and website designer. As far as I can tell, he has no real philosophical pedigree, but...
That is not a negative. By the way.
No, exactly right. Because, and this shows you how far he's gone, because with Julian Baggini, he is the editor and co-founder of the Philosopher's Magazine in the UK.
There you go.
And has written numerous books on philosophy. The Story of Philosophy, Does God Hate Women? Identity Crisis Against Multiculturalism. That one made me raise an eyebrow. Little Book of Big Ideas, Why Truth Matters. He's dug into the world here. Whether
it's good to let the journalists have a go at this stuff. That's a fact.
What's always been interesting to me, and I think this whole discussion that we've had illustrates this, because again, Ty, you and Chris have the dubious privilege of watching me with my mentor. Peterson's the guy who taught me how to think like this, for good or ill.
I just facilitated, Andrew. I didn't teach you anything.
Yeah, well,
Professor, I want to say that is what you just said is the hallmark of every great teacher on the planet.
I had really good teachers.
I had a really good one too.
I'm still scared of them.
Any good teacher will say, "I didn't teach you anything. I just facilitated it."
But that you learn this right away. And if you don't, by the way, you're really in trouble. I would have, it's like, I don't know about you guys. Like, I'm still afraid of my great aunt Solveig, who has been dead for like decades now. And I knew, that if I talk about habits, right, there's things like if I step out of line, I know she would come back from the dead and beat me.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And I had these wonderful professors who would also come back from the dead and ridicule me for the rest of all time.
They make medication for that.
Yeah.
It won't help. I'm afraid it won't help in this case. Yeah. So, but thank you for that as a compliment. I think it's a good thing to remind of everybody, though.
What Mark did for me, I would love to use the analogy of sharpening a stone.
Yeah.
But Mark facilitated me in the same way that you facilitate relief of pain by lancing a boil. So, but anyways, tell you what, folks, we're going to be back on the other side of this break.
Oh, dear.
Who the hell knows where we're going to wind up, but it's certainly not going to be on a bus chained to a box full of fucking poison. This is the Narrowband Broadcast Network. That's Ty, that's Chris, that's Dr. Mark, I'm Andy. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back.
Yeah, Ty, hand me that box.
Right? I can't. It's chained.
It's chained.
Hat Nation, want to support the show and help it grow, or, well, keep the lights on? Head on over to kyhopodcast.com/shop and buy some cool swag. Shirts, phone cases, hoodies, and yeah, hats. I mean, duh. All proceeds go right into Andy's pocket. Help keep KYHO in your ears. That's kyhopodcast.com/shop. Go get some cool stuff, rep the show, and as always, keep your hat on, which is a lot easier when, you have a hat, right?
And we're back for the final segment of Keep Your Hat On. I'm Andrew Scott, along with my good friends Dr. Mark Peterson, Ty Robert Anthony, and Chris Vicano.
Hey.
And I think we're just going to have a little bit of fun on the way out
Yeah,
here.
the terminal moraine here.
The terminal moraine. Well,
the discussion here.
The clock is ticking on that here for you. Wednesday, you're in the property right now, and for those of you who can't see,
moving
which
into
is
the
everybody. Dr. Mark's move-out date was last Wednesday, but he is recording currently in the old digs with a handheld microphone because he effectively packed so well that he doesn't know where his boom arm is.
I can't find my walk either, man. I'm beside myself.
Oh, well, wait a minute. That's some shit. Wait, you don't know where your walk is?
This is why, by the way, and I made dinner for the significant other the other night.
Oh,
she goes,
your walk. I was like,
walk.
your walk.
W-O-K.
You're not walking anymore?
Yeah,
What, you can't find your
I'm
walk?
not walk, man. Are you walk? This is the thing. It's like,
I'm sorry. Did I hear that correctly? I swear I thought I heard Andy say you're broadcasting from the old digs.
yeah.
So what? Did you like break back in or something?
Oh no! So no.
He's still old.
When you get old, Chris, you have the opportunity to buy a place before you sell your own place.
Yeah, this is quite different from most of our moves where once the door
it all happens
closed,
at the same time.
He knows where they hid the key.
Well, I don't have a key actually. I live in I live in a place where it's like you really literally you don't need to lock the house ever.
He's got it on good authority that the owners are out.
It's weird, and this has been like the strangest move in my life because it's like I literally, I spent like 3 years living out of a van, right, when I first got started and stuff, and I was gypsying around the country and doing like adjunct jobs, which is like slave labor of the worst kind. And when I finally landed here, well, anyway, so the idea that like between the two of us, Alexandra and I, is like between the two of us, we could like buy a place, put a down payment on it, and then sell our places after we'd done that. And it's
at your leisure.
It gets worse, and it gets worse. I paid, oh God, I feel so guilty about this. I paid movers.
Don't feel guilty. Don't
feel guilty about that. You're an adult.
Wait. No. Why do you feel guilty about that?
Yeah, because I'm an adult. I feel guilty about
How did
adulthood.
You come to that place where you?
Well, it's like no. I always did everything on my own, and in fact, I had a couple of my buddies who said, "Oh, do you need me to come help you move it?" It's like, dude. And this is a. I don't feel bad about this plug. 2 men in a truck. I think they're a national.
Yeah.
Those guys.
Yeah. 2 men in a truck. Yeah.
By the way, mad props to those guys. They were awesome. They were efficient.
And by the way, your friends who asked you to help move, and when you said no, they got off the phone and they just went, "Oh,
yeah, they did." Yeah.
Hey, how many trucks have I ever driven around in that I put the bumper sticker on? Yes, this is my truck. No, I won't help you move.
Yeah, that's right. You have a truck.
But I would always help them move.
I moved the preponderance of everything over there, and the only thing that's held us up is there's and Alex, if you're listening to this, I still love you. There's a bed frame that's not present in the new place yet. And once the bed frame is selected, because it has to do with decor, and this is beyond my competence, once the bed frame is in place, the bed is there, the mattress is there, everything is there. I kept saying, we should just sleep on the floor. And it's like, not yet. And so once the bed frame is in place, I'm actually going to go over tomorrow. This is amusing as hell. I will be spending most of the day tomorrow putting in drawer liners and shelf liner. Because now at this point in life,
that is such a I'm old thing now.
Yeah, I'm feeling that.
Yeah, drawer liners and shelf liners.
This was not, by the way, my idea, but I'm not responsible for this dimension in our relationship.
Speaking to the fact that this whole thing you indicated was out of the scope of your competency. So
there are many kinds of love languages, Ty.
Yeah.
And this is shelf liners is one of them.
Well, one, good for you for noticing it.
Yeah.
And two, March, brother.
Yeah.
Well, it should be like probably next week, actually, at the latest. I'm going to get that. Once I get that done, then we can unpack everything. There's furniture issues, it turns out, because of the supply chains are a disaster.
Mark,
even like temporary. Yes, Robert.
If you screw up the lining on one shelf enough, you won't have to do it.
Think that's
I'll still have to do it. Thank you for that, though, amateur.
Bad at this.
Yeah, right, amateur.
This ain't my first
not how it works.
I know how this works. And I'm actually delighted to do this.
So how did your second rodeo go?
Yeah.
So the second rodeo was 20 years of really good relationship.
Yeah, see, Ty, what you don't understand is if he fucks up that first one, he will be spending the next 10 years every other third weekend cutting that shit to try to get it perfect.
That'll be in the visitation rights responsible. Yeah. No, Chris, I've had practice at this. Let's go back to that discussion about practicality.
I was just poking fun at you. I
have to get this done. And so, but once that's in, then I should be relocated to the fabulous urban setting of Murray Hill neighborhood in downtown Milwaukee.
It just takes a bed frame and some lining shelves.
Essentially, lining shelves and a bed frame, dude, that is all I need. Yep.
When you suggested that you possibly sleep on the floor, did Alex give you that look of, we're old enough now that we don't have to do 50. That shit.
It's like, I'm not doing
and
that.
And you will not be able to move the next morning. What are you talking about, sleep on the floor?
Oh,
I don't know what everybody's on about. If I can sleep on the
mattress
floor,
is on the floor. I'm not sleeping on the floor. I'm sleeping on
no,
the
I'm saying even if there was a mattress on the floor, me getting up from not having it on I'd be.
We're
doomed.
not talking about you.
I love sleeping on the floor.
Well, I am a special snowflake, so yeah.
This is making me really nostalgic for my 20s.
My back just goes right into alignment by the time it's time to get up and
see the Tai Chi. Tai, you understand. Tai understands. Yeah. He knows this stuff.
Well, we can't even talk about from back in the day because Dr. Peterson is sitting in a room that up until very recently had shelves that were made with cinder blocks and wooden planks.
Pretty much, yeah. Actually,
I know
this. Yeah, pretty much.
It was a look. It was a thing.
This conversation is making me really nostalgic for my 20s.
College,
when it was cool to camp in the new place the first night before all your shit got there.
Look, those of us who were in
that's why you got evicted because you lit a fire the first night you got in there. Right in the middle of the living room, not using the fireplace.
We were making s'mores.
Yeah,
look, I didn't even get off the futon until I was like 40. Okay, so this is like supreme luxury, and it's like I was raised by Norwegian Lutherans for crying out loud. It's like I have all sorts of weird guilt associated with being happy and comfortable.
The heavy ascetic bent.
What are you doing? That's a perfectly good coffee can you're throwing away there.
Yeah, that's right. Sure, yeah. I actually my chopstick can is a can from Café de Monde Coffee. So that's different. Not going anywhere. Alex is not going to want that on the counters, but that's where it's going.
You know what you do then, Mark? You do what I did, and you take that coffee can and you cut the bottom out and you make it into a lampshade.
Oh, that'd really go over well.
No, but you have that in you have it in your space. That's Heather and I are really good about this division of stuff. Like here yesterday, she went out. She was dropping a bunch of stuff off at Goodwill, and there was some guy that rocked up there, and he had like 3 little tiny footstools that had like grandma embroidery all over them.
Oh God.
And Goodwill now has taken a hard line in accepting any furniture that has cloth on it. I know you're probably suffering this now as well.
Well, the problem they don't have a heat treat room. So
exactly right, and so it's the whole bed bug thing, and the bed bug thing is a real concern here on the West Coast, specifically. And so they can't sanitize any stuff like that. So if it's got cloth on it, no. Hard chairs, fine. Little cute footstools, no. So the guy's like, well, what am I going to do with these? I don't want these things. And Heather is seeing them, and her bargain eye spots these things and goes, well, I'll take them. And literally, the guy was in his van and driving off. Well, yeah, seriously. But that's her jam.
Yeah.
Heather is like a frustrated grandma. She, we have doilies. We have little doilies on our chairs.
Are you old enough for that yet?
Mm-hmm. Man, but this division comes. I have my studio.
Yeah.
And I get to do anything I want with it.
Yeah.
She came in here the other day to take a picture from me of my father and put it in a frame. And I was like, no, that's my picture of my dad displayed the way that I want. But I throw it back to her where it will be me yelling, Heather, this is about color. Come here. because that's just it. I know my zone. I stay in my lane.
We had an early conversation about this in the relationship where she goes, "Now, so would it be okay if I made decisions about style?" And it was like, it was a moment of great relief.
Did she actually phrase it that way?
There was a long pregnant pause before she used the word, and it was like, yes, dear. Because we've both been around the block, we know what we're doing now. We've been joking. Actually, it's like to restart relationships at this time. Later on, like at late in your 50s and 60s, is you have the advantage of having made all sorts of terrible mistakes earlier. And
being through that first rodeo.
This is my 27th rodeo. For Christ's sake,
attention. You're paying attention now. And so that's been really wonderful part of this.
I love being in a relationship where I'm older and I've done all the fuck up, so I just know which ones to avoid before I start.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, she is in the, she's at the Peck Film School at UW Milwaukee. And so she teaches. And so she teaches film editing and cinematography and all that jazz. Wow. So yeah. And so it's like, who has even I can do this. Is like, okay, between you and her, who has the better eye for anything? And the answer is, well, I'm pretty good, but
no, her.
She stages shots. Yeah,
just shut up, Mark. Shut up, Mark.
She knows how to put it in the frame. Let it go.
I hear Fred. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Do
you have anything to say?
There.
As
soon as you put the mic in front of them, the cat gets their tongue.
Animals.
But no, the thing for me, and I want to be clear to our listening audience that none of us think that this is a heterosexual or heteronormative dynamic that we're talking about here. This is just two people smashing their lives together.
Yeah.
And somebody is going to have hard and fast views on
Somebody's
something.
Gonna lose.
And at the,
by the way,
you got to the point
more than the other.
You got to the point a lot faster than I did, Ty. You're right. Somebody's going to lose. One of you decide which part of this equation you're going to lose, and just move on. And have
it's about picking your battles and
be smart and go
compromising
straight to
with the
surrender.
Rest. Yep.
If I'm going to gloss that at all, Andy, one of the things too is like she and I are both old enough and have been through the question about gender paradigming and stereotyping and all the rest of this to know that what we're doing, and this has been really the best part of this whole relationship, is like we know enough to just sort of feel out where the other person is and just let them be that person.
Yeah,
and
that really is awesome.
That's the right answer.
That's been quite wonderful, actually.
And that's one of the reasons why. That's one of the reasons why I am so much happier as an older human being than I was as a younger human being, because I can look back over the very bumpy rainbow of my life and go, yeah, that part where everything got brown, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm staying with all the yellow.
And it's not just about having made all those mistakes. It's as you get older, you get better at just letting shit go.
Not everybody does.
I know that we're going to be wrapping this up soon, so I wanted to share something.
Yes, please.
A friend of mine shared with me. For those.
Oh, there we go. We even got that on camera. Sorry, Ty. No, that was pissed off cat going, hey.
Monkey, feed me.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ty.
But for those of you that don't know, I have a fair amount of sobriety in my life. I made that choice a number of years ago. And so this came from a friend of mine in those orbits. Mm-hmm. So let me just read this to you. I have officially run out of enough serenity to accept the things that I cannot change.
Amen. Preach.
There is simply not enough fucking serenity to be found at this point. Maybe this is a supply chain problem too. I don't know.
I am out of serenity.
It's stuck in the Suez.
Serenity is crosswise in the Suez.
And with that, you've been listening to another completely aimless and pointless Keep Your Hat On, the show where hell even we don't know where we're going to go. As always, I have been Andrew Scott along with my good friends Ty Robert Anthony and Chris Vacano. And
stay curious.
Wow, that's the slug line you're going with?
Yep.
That didn't sound patronizing at all.
Stay curious.
You sound like Jack Horkheimer from Star Hustler.
Greetings,
fellow stargazers.
You're right. I loved him too. But and of course, Dr. Mark Peterson. And
I don't
with
have a
that,
toupee either.
yeah, don't.
Stay sassy.
I don't
San
ever.
Diego.
See, that's just it. I don't think it was a toupee. I think it was just that
Oh
bad.
my God, really?
Yeah.
Keep looking up.
Exactly. And with that, keep your hat on because we may end up miles from here. Take care, everybody. Be safe. Wear your masks, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Be good to each other. That's all we ask.
Love and
We'll talk to you
respect.
again soon,
I
folks.
gotta let the dog
Bye-bye.
out.
Bye.
Well, there's a chunk of time you can't get back. From Portland, Oregon, this has been Keep Your Hat On, a big little show about a whole lot of nothing in particular. Keep Your Hat On is a narrowband broadcast network production in association with PodSquadPDX.com. Andrew Scott, executive producer. Robert Anthony and Chris Vicano, associate producers. Our theme music was written and produced by Andrew Scott, along with help from Ron Kajawa. Website design and maintenance by Vicano Creative, Chris Vicano Webmaster, available at VicanoCreative.com. Audio and video production by Andrew Scott, available at AndrewScottMedia.com. Got ideas or comments for the show? Email us at talkback@kyhopodcast.com, and don't forget to like, click, and subscribe. On behalf of the boys, I'm your announcer, Michael Brumage. Thanks for listening. I guess.
All right. And we done and we good and we out.
Was that okay?
Holy shit, dude.
It's too late to be concerned about the quality now.
I guess so.
NBBN.
The Narrowband Broadcast Network.
The focus is on you.